Hey, Birchouse friends, welcome back. So, we did not do Hey Birchouse last week. The temperatures got really bitter cold, and my kids were called off school, and so I took the day off and spent the day hanging out with them. But we're back this week, and we will answer a question we drew 2 weeks ago. And that question comes from Sophia Griswold, who asks, what is your favorite inaccurate historical misconception? And Sophia, this is such a great question. Um, this might come as a shock to you, but history is riddled with inaccuracies and misconceptions, things we don't understand, things that pop culture misrepresents, or things that we just don't have the context for. And then there's just so many sources out there that are just wrong for one reason or another. You've all seen on a social media, a TikTok or Facebook or on YouTube, like 10 lists about history facts you didn't know. Number 10 will shock you. And then you'll go in, and a lot of times they will have wrong information, sometimes unintentionally. They just picked up like pop culture or something, or outright lie. And so I was spoiled for choice on what I wanted to talk about today. But as I had the extra week to think about it, I think I came up with something I really think that we in general don't have a misconception about history. And it's about how we view history. And what I mean by that is the way we view history is in the context of events and people. And so we think about things like the Battle of the Bulge, D-Day, the Battle of Agincourt. We think about Martin Luther King Jr., Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, Cleopatra. We think about the signing of the Magna Carta, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the Treaty of Versailles. We think about all these events and people, and so we contextualize history in these like events and characters. And I think that's a very poor way of looking at history. And so let me just kind of give you an example of what the way I think about it. So cast your mind back. It's 1942, and a Secret Service agent walks down to the president's bedroom, and he knocks on the door and asks Mr. President if he's ready. And FDR rolls out, and they head down to the kitchen so FDR can get breakfast before he starts his day in the Oval Office. Certainly, they didn't walk in silence. Maybe FDR asked him about his family, his kids. Maybe they talked about the war effort. Maybe they talked about the radio program that was on last night, and the thrilling stories that were presented. Maybe they shared a dirty joke. We don't tend to think about the day-to-day lives of the people involved in history. Some of the most exciting archaeological finds aren't swords and axes and shields and flags, or manuscripts or treaties or truce pacts or anything like that. They are things like darning needles and bowls and cups, a child's toy, graffiti on a wall. There's actually a mosque in the Middle East that has, I think in Iraq, that has graffiti from a Viking up at the top. A Viking had climbed up to the top of the mosque and had put a graffiti, something along the lines like Sven was here, or something to that nature. Actually, I was in a few months ago, I went to the Pompeii exhibit that was in the museum down in Cincinnati. And they had bits of wall that had graffiti on them. And some of them were even like ads for prostitutes, or like graffiti to like call me for a good time was the kind of the essence of what they were saying. And that's wild. That's so crazy. Those are the really exciting archaeological finds. And the reason they're so much more exciting than like the big stuff, the things we like to think about when we say archaeology, is because they tell a story of human lives as they were lived. Everything you and I have experienced, everything that we as modern day humans experience, are things that our past humanity have experienced. You know, you have people that worry about paying their taxes or paying their bills. They had discussions about paying their bills. Discussions worrying about, two kings are squabbling and it might lead to war. And you as a peasant, you worry. You're like, this could really affect our lives. They could conscript our son. That would really, we're really scared for his safety. The horse broke down again. The horse is old and sickly. How are we going to afford to, get a new horse, especially before the next harvest? They said there's a new town down the road and they set up a nice paved road to it. And now people aren't coming to our town. They're not stopping over. And the economy is really hurting here. All these things have happened throughout history. The things that we see and experience in a day-to-day life. Take it for an example. World War II soldier. We'll say the Battle of the Bulge, and it's freezing cold, and we hear the story of, there's a train. We hear the story of the soldiers surrounded by the 101st Airborne, surrounded by the Germans, and their valiant effort to fight back and break the Germans there at the Battle of the Bulge. And we think about those brave boys with their, as they fight hard. But we don't think about like the individual. And when you break it down to a soldier, an individual soldier, they had feelings about what was going on. They had thoughts about what was going on. They got sick. They sniffled. The snot dripped out their nose as they shivered with the cold. And as I think about last week and how cold it was, and sitting in an icy trench where your only source of warmth is the other two guys in the trenches, you all cuddled together. But that's just one moment in his life. He goes home. He survives the war. He gets a job. Maybe he's a doctor, a lawyer, or maybe he's a plumber, a car salesman. Maybe he manages the local grocery store. And he has a girlfriend. They break up. He has his first heartbreak. He, meets another girl. They get married. They have kids. They have grandkids. He has birthday parties, vacations. He has an entire life. He has disappointments. He has a radiator that breaks down. He has to get repaired. He has this entire life that we all narrow down to this one moment. And so I implore you, if you want to break misconceptions about history, if you want to talk about the biggest misconception of history, it's that history is not individual components. It's not this thing happened, and this thing happened, and this thing happened, and this person was involved. History is the story of humanity. And I think that is so freaking cool that the things that we experience were experienced by people that lived 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. As much as things change, things stay the same. And the people of the past were real people, flesh and blood. They cried, they laughed, they joked, they went to the bathroom, they got sick, they had loved ones they cared for, they had people they didn't like, but they had to be around, so they had to find a way to be cordial with them and work together with them. They had lives just like we did, and that is so freaking cool. And the moment you start thinking about history in those terms, the moment history becomes so much more alive. So, the biggest misconception about history is that history is not a set of events and characters. It is the story of humanity. Sophia, that was such a great question. Thank you so much for asking. I'm going to pick a question for next week because I have rambled a lot. And next week's question comes from Bethany Priester. So I will answer this, hopefully quite a bit shorter next week. In the meantime, if you ever have questions for Birchouse, comment below with "Hey Birchouse," ask, and we'll answer it in a future video. In the meantime, we'll see you all next Wednesday.
Welcome to Birchouse, where history meets the art with due diligence.